Well, the story of gold and the Japanese yen is a much different story than what is going on in U.S. dollar. You know, if you recall, it was I think it was actually September 6th that gold hit $1,921, and it was also it was over 1,900 in late August. It pulled back a little bit, I think, and it went up to like 1,921. I think it was around very early September of 2011, and it pulled back. We had a harsh correction at the end of September, and then it went back up over 17 something in November, pulled back again at the end of the year 2011. Then it had a run up again in very late March of 2012, and now, you know, it's sitting here at another correction. And then of course we had another pull up. It went up again when they announced QE3 in like September of 2012. It was moving up again into October, and now, you know, it's at the big correction point. But if you're looking in yen, the story is much different. You know, gold, you know, it did about the same type of pattern. It went up like, say, late August 2011 in yen. That was a peak. That wasn't the ultimate peak, though. It did another peak a little later on in 2011, like in November. Then it did another peak in late February of 2012. And then later on, it also, when we announced QE in the United States, it was actually affecting Japan too. And it was moving up in September, early October of 2012. But the highest gold was actually in yen, is actually in 2013, in February and April, early February of 2013, in early April. It was like a double top. You know, if you're looking at the charts, you would maybe call that a double top or something. Well, it turns out it was higher. In other words, if we were looking at this, say, in the price of dollars, and we're looking at, you know, we imagine this was in dollars, and somehow that same pattern was overlaid in U.S. dollars, we'd been looking at, say, $1,921 back in late August 2011, early September 2011. And this year, 2013, we would have seen it well over $2,000 in early February 2013 and April 2013. I mean, if you were actually overlaid that onto, like, and you said that's dollars, let's change that to yen to dollars. Let's just imagine that was just what happened in the USA versus what happened in Japan in their money. And you'd be looking at the picture right now, and it would be pulling back below. Right now, it would be sitting at almost around $2,000 practically. It would have been well over $2,000 though. So the picture of gold, how it's going in Japan, in Japanese yen, is very different than what's happening in the U.S. dollar. And they're undergoing a very aggressive QE policy. Now, I know I put out before, and actually I got this from information from somewhere else. It wasn't my own analysis, but I think it was very legitimate analysis. One of the reasons gold and a lot of the commodities took this major hit was when Japan embarked on this QE policy. But obviously, it's not actually, it's going like that with other countries, but in Japanese yen, it's actually doing quite well. But what's going on is all these other countries, since Japan, the Bank of Japan embarked on this QE policy, they are enabling, you know, lots more money to be borrowed in yen at extremely low interest rates. So people are buying, investors are buying it. The big investors are borrowing money in yen, which has become easily available, and they're reinvesting that money elsewhere that has more of a yield, and they're actually, you know, using leverage. So if they're getting, you know, if they're paying like 0.1% on yen or something like that, and they're getting 3% somewhere else, they'll leverage it up and probably get 30% for all I know. I don't know exactly how that works, but that is what they are doing. You know, I couldn't explain the mechanics of that, but that is what they're doing. And it makes a lot of sense. Why buy gold when you can have a sure bet like that? But, you know, something's going to happen, actually, you know, because basically a lot of people are going to wind up, somebody's going to get caught at the end here with that game. You know, the last ones to get out of that game because eventually the Japanese bond market's going to suffer fantastically. But right now, also, the yen has passed 100 yen to the dollar. I think it's just today. And that's the first time it's been at 100 yen to the dollar since April of 2009. That's very interesting. It's very interesting. So, while we're sitting around waiting for grass to grow, you are in the right area. I know the major media is kind of like mocking gold and things like that. And they're even mocking Paulson, who's like the multi-billionaire who's took a heavy bet into gold, like he's lost all these billions. I don't know if he really lost any billions because you don't lose until you sell. But Warren Buffett is extremely against gold, but you never know what Warren Buffett is really doing. That's the thing. It's like there's so, how many people are in your personal, even average people, on your personal financial statements, do you put down how much gold or silver you have on there? Do you advertise that? No. A lot of people don't. And that's why I always say those numbers. Now, with Warren Buffett, he wants you to invest in his Berkshire Hathaway fund. He doesn't want people to run out of Berkshire Hathaway and get into gold. He's not doing that. So, obviously Eric Sprott will tell you something completely different, right? Because he has funds that he manages that are gold and silver and platinum and palladium. He'll tell you that's the best investment in the world because it's his thing, But there's a very, very, very different picture going on in gold when you look at it priced in Japanese yen. In 2013, priced in Japanese yen, gold has hit an all-time high in early February 2013 and early April 2013. Now it had a pullback hard in yen, like everywhere else, in April of 2013. Now it's actually, if we just transposed everything and said, let's make believe these are dollars, and we said that the yen peak when it hit in, say, August or early September of 2011 in yen, and we just transposed that and said that's $1,921. If we look at these graphs, it'd be going like, up again, not up to 1921, up again, up again. Then in 2013, way above 2,000. It would be way above 2,000. It'd be like 2,100, no problem. So that's the picture that people who are investing in Japan are seeing. They must be buying gold like crazy. They must be. It must be a hot market over there. I don't even know that for like reading that in an article. I'm just saying it must be. Because if that was the way the things were, the charts were moving in US dollars, there'd be all the gold bugs be out of left field telling you, like, proving that it's just had this little minor correction and it's on its way up to even higher highs. That's probably what's going to happen because in yen, it looks like, broke through 100 yen to the dollar. It's going up more probably. And with this policy that Japan's embarked upon, that the Bank of Japan has embarked upon, I know George Soros is like a guy that makes all kinds of money and does bad stuff and all this type of stuff, but he's not all bad. I'll tell you the truth, he's not all bad. It's like he's telling you the absolute truth. What Japan is doing is extremely dangerous. And it's probably going to be extremely dangerous to the global currency system too. So, do not trust the major media. I'm not pushing fear and doom and gloom here because I think this is solid, cold reality. And I think Paulson is right on the money, and I think Faber's right on the money too. And I think Buffett, he's on the money too, but he's just taking a different approach. And he may be lying about what he's actually doing in gold. He personally, I'll bet you, his personal wealth, some of it is definitely wrapped up in gold. I'd almost guarantee it. But he's got other ways he can make money. Gold won't be the only way you're going to make money. There's a lot of truth to the fact. It is a fact that gold just sits there. But right now, what they're doing to the currencies, it just can't freaking sustain itself. That's obvious 101. But just want to reiterate again that what is going on in Japan, if you look at the price of gold in Japanese yen, it looks extremely bullish. It does. It had a pullback in April, but so what? In 2013, it hit a couple all-time highs in 2013, right before that pullback. Now it's on its way back up again in yen. So, this is actually what's going to happen with inflation. It might be, that's what's going on in Japan. Then maybe it'll hit the UK. Then it'll hit America. Now, of course, there's outside events that can drive the price of gold up tremendously really fast. Like I talked about, war in the Middle East. I don't know when that shit's going to happen. It could happen anytime, really. It's usually when they're not talking about it is when it's probably more likely. It's when, there's a lot of rhetoric back and forth, then you probably know nothing's going to happen. When everything looks calm, I don't know. You never know. That would be something that would be extremely bullish for gold. But even without that, it looks like, this is the only reason gold is not looking so good in the U.S. dollars, because the U.S. dollar is moving up, the index is staying strong, because the yen is being weakened, the euro is weak. So relatively speaking, it makes the dollar look strong. Time's going to come around to the dollar too. I think the U.S. dollar is going to be one of the last currencies that really get hit really hard, though, to tell you the truth. I know there's a lot of debt out there. It's, I don't know. I think the Western elite in this country have a vested interest in holding things together, and they're not as stupid as people say they are. They're not stupid. I don't think the U.S. dollar is going to go to oblivion. But we're going to see it weakened, and we're going to see gold go up. And the people right now mocking those in gold are wrong. Actually, like I said, the picture is very, very different in Japan. And that'll come around to the United States eventually. It definitely will.